We're going to read Luke 8, beginning at verse 26. Jesus and his disciples arrived at the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. As he stepped out on land, a man of the city who had demons met him. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he did not live in a house, but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, the man fell down before Jesus and shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many times it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles. But he would break the bonds and be driven by the demons into the wilds. Jesus then asked the man, "What is your name?" He said, "Legion," for many demons had entered the man. They begged him not to order them to go back into the abyss. Now there on the hillside a large herd of swine was feeding, and the demons begged Jesus to let them enter these. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. When the swineherd saw what had happened, they ran off and told it in the city and in the country. Then people came out to see what had happened, and when they came to Jesus, they saw the man from whom the demons had gone sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told them how the one who had been possessed by demons had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, for they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him. But Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." So the man went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. This is the word of our Lord. Thanks be to God. Friends, if you came here today, this morning, thinking that your life was going to hell in a handbasket, imagine what it was like for Jesus' disciples the day they were taken by Jesus to see this demon-possessed man. It was absolutely horrifying and terrible. Remember that Jesus' disciples had just had a near-death experience with him. When a storm arose out at sea, I'm sure all of them were soaking wet, cold, and miserable. Have you ever had a near-death experience out on the water? Living so close to the ocean here, I would imagine some of you have. Once, I was out fishing on the Gulf of Mexico, and a storm came out of nowhere. I was terrified. The swells grew larger and larger. The waves kept crashing up over the bow of our boat, and I thought to myself, we're not going to make it home alive. I hunkered down in the boat and grabbed a hold of each railing on my left and right as the boat rose and fell over 15 feet each time a wave came up over us. My face turned every shade of green, which is pretty hard for me because I'm Asian. And my stomach felt like a soda can that had been shaken to death. I ended up throwing up a lot. I think they call that chumming. Despite wearing my Gore-Tex waterproof jacket, I was soaking wet, cold, and miserable. All I wanted to do was to go back home. I imagine this was the way the disciples felt during their storm out at sea. Take us home, Jesus. Take us back home. But Jesus didn't take them home. Oh no, he had other plans for their lives, even more dangerous places to take them. As we heard from our passage, Jesus took the disciples on a field trip to one of the most dangerous and unwelcoming places for Jews. He took them to the country of the Gerasenes, near the town of Decapolis. Now, Decapolis may sound like Atlantis, but I assure you it was no vacation. The passage says that Decapolis was on the other side, which means opposite Galilee, a place in opposition from their homeland. Decapolis was unwelcoming to Jews because it was a Hellenistic territory, Gentile land, and thus considered unclean for Jews. To make matters worse, Jesus took his disciples straight to the tombs, to a cemetery where dead bodies are left to rot, a place of death, an unwelcoming, unclean place. I can imagine Jesus' disciples were thinking, this is creepy and weird. Why are we here? We shouldn't be in a place like this, Jesus. We want to go home. No one in their right mind would ever want to be in a place like this. But that's exactly where Jesus took them, to the place no one wants to go or was willing to go. And when they arrived, a lunatic, a deranged man with no clothes on, ran up to them. How would you respond? I think I would have died right then and there. What a terrifying experience that must have been. Lunatics are scary. They're unpredictable and dangerous at times. No one could restrain this man, not even with chains, for he broke them. Can you imagine how scary this guy would have been? I've been in ministry for over 25 years, and I've never encountered anything like this before. Have you? Some might call this man insane, but the politically correct way to describe his condition at that time was to say he had an unclean spirit. You know, that naked man with all the bruises and the blood running down his arms and legs? Well, that guy has an unclean spirit. Saying he had an unclean spirit kind of sums it up well, don't you think? This statement works for us even today. That poor kid, he's lost his mind. Yes, he's had an unclean spirit ever since he fell off the jungle gym. That baby's diaper, gosh, it smells awful. Yes, she ate an unclean spirit, and now it's coming out of her. Having an unclean spirit can mean a lot of things, but it's never good. I'm making a few jokes here, but the truth is, I don't know what to make of this man and his demons. The story said he had many demons inside of him. When Jesus asked, "What is your name?" he said, "Legion." Legion means thousands. And his many demons separated this man from his community because no one had any hope for his life. He was dead to everyone. His life was over, hence his exile amongst the tombs. Now, I don't know if demons are real and exist or not. Do you know what I mean? I'm not really sure. Maybe they do exist. But frankly, I don't wish to argue the point whether or not demons exist, because we could be chasing our tails all day long and never get to the truth of this story. What I wish to discuss is the real presence of evil in the world, evil that consumes people's lives with diseases and illnesses, evil that separates us from one another and our community, evil that controls us and causes us harm, evil that possesses our minds, our bodies, and our souls, evil that seeks to end our lives and destroy us. There is no question in my mind that evil exists. And this story personifies the presence of evil in the world as a group of demons. Evil speaks, evil sees, evil begs, and then my favorite part of the story, evil dies. Evil is a very real part of our world, and it can do us harm. It can. But, and this is the part that I really hope you get from this sermon, but it has no power over God, and thus evil has no power over us. In our story, Jesus once again proves that he has power to control evil and to destroy it. The demons know Jesus is more powerful than all of them put together. Legion's first words subjugate himself to Jesus. What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? Do not torment me. And from there, the demons ask Jesus' permission for everything. Please, Jesus, let us remain here. Please, Jesus, don't send us back to the abyss. Please, Jesus, may we enter the swine. They beg Jesus permission for everything. And without Jesus' permission, they can do nothing. Jesus has all the power. He has power over evil, and evil submits to his authority. I love this story. I love this story, especially the part where the pigs run down the steep bank and drown in the lake. Isn't that part great? Correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, but isn't this the first time that deviled ham is consumed in the Bible? Some of you got that. I do love the part about the pigs. Aren't swine the perfect place for unclean demons, allowing the unclean to be with that which is unclean? And what's more unclean than thousands of stinky, filthy pigs? Many years ago, I was down in the Yucatan of Mexico serving with my youth group from South Carolina. We were staying in a Mayan village where we had built part of a church, and we were also leading VBS for the villagers of about 80 children. It was an amazing place, mainly because the people there were amazing. The village, though, was not so amazing. To be honest, it looked like a rat hole. Their village was somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. They had no plumbing, no running water, not much of anything, except for some people and a lot of stray dogs that you wouldn't want to touch. The Mayans lived in stick huts with these thatched roofs and dirt floors. When I saw them for the first time, I thought Gilligan's Island, but on a much, much poorer scale. There wasn't even a single bed or mattress in that place, in that whole village. Everyone slept in hammocks, and so did we. And it wasn't uncommon for us to be woken in the middle of the night by the sound of roosters crowing. And although we were from the Gamecock state of South Carolina, we found those birds to be quite rude. There were scary things all around that village. One day I was walking with one of our teens from our youth group named Haley, and we came across a large hog living in a pen behind one of the huts. The hog was humongous. It was ugly and covered in hair. Its face was covered with flies and with dirt. The sight of this beast was startling. Haley looked at the pig and then looked away with disgust and said, "I can't believe anyone would eat a filthy, stinking animal like that." So I said to Haley, "Well, do you like bacon?" Her eyes got big and she blurted out, "I love bacon." And I smiled because I knew this was one of those teachable moments. I said, "Haley, do you know that bacon comes from a pig?" She was quiet for a while. Her face grew pale because I knew that this truth had shocked her to her core. And after gathering herself, Haley responded, "Well, I'm not going to eat any more bacon from now on." I'm not sure if Haley ever ate bacon or not, but I can understand why she was so disgusted. Seeing pigs wallow in their own filth can turn one's appetite sour, for they are considered unclean animals. Jews do not eat pork for this reason. Pigs are so unclean that the Torah, the book of Hebrew laws, forbids Jews to eat pork or even to touch pigs, even to touch them. So the disciples came face to face with these unclean animals in this unclean place with an unclean man filled with thousands of unclean demons. Could this have been a more dangerous and scary experience for the disciples? Imagine their terror. But Luke's gospel tells us that the people who lived in that country, who learned about Jesus' power to heal and to cast out demons, were the ones who were really scared and terrified. They begged Jesus to leave their neighborhood. They were so scared. Was it Jesus' power over evil that terrified them the most? Did the people fear healing and transformation more than they feared the disease? Sometimes the cure can be more frightening than the condition. Have you ever spoken with someone going through chemotherapy or radiation treatment? Those treatments are worthy of our fears. Did the people fear that Jesus was going to cast out the demons in their own lives that they had come so accustomed to living with and so comfortable with? Sometimes we get so used to living in our own filth that we don't even recognize it anymore. Do you know someone who has a dirty bedroom or a filthy car that they haven't cleaned in a very long time? They don't notice it anymore. We treat our lives like that sometimes. Did the people fear what they might have to give up in order to become clean? Sometimes we hold on to our demons and we don't want to let go of them because we've been with them for so long and we don't think we can live without them. Have you ever known someone who is possessed by gambling or drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, video games, pornography, laziness, wealth, or greed? And our list of demons goes on and on and on. Encountering Jesus, who has the power to rid us of our demons, can be a terrifying experience. It can take us to places we don't wish to go. Sometimes I struggle with whether or not I want Jesus to rid my life of my demons. Do I really want to give up my gluttony? I love to pig out when I eat. Or my lust for audio equipment and speakers. I love to pig out when I shop online. Do I really want to give up on all of my selfish behaviors? I love to pig out when I'm pigging out. It's dangerous and it's scary when we encounter Jesus, who has the power to heal us of our demons. We might be too terrified to let our demons go. And who do you think is the most terrified person in the whole story? I believe it is the man who was healed, because Jesus sent him back to his community, the community that had abandoned him, back to the people who gave up on his life and left him to die and to rot in that place. Jesus healed him. Jesus freed him of his demons. But I believe this man was so incredibly hurt by his family and friends who had turned their backs on him that going back home was the last place he wanted to go. The man begged Jesus to take him with him. Please, Jesus, please let me go with you. I can't go back there. There is nothing but pain in that place for me. And Jesus told the man, go back home to your friends. I imagine the man thought, what friends, Jesus? I have no friends there. No one cares for me. Jesus continued to instruct the man, and go tell them how much God has done for you. What the heck? There's no way I'm going back there. It's too scary. They might try to hurt me again. Who here would want to share the gospel with those who condemn you, who have hurt you? This would be a terrible task and a horrible situation, and perhaps for this man another death sentence. The Bible is vague about what happens next. It simply says the man went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. When I read these words, the man went away, I feel his pain. I imagine he turned from Jesus very slowly and went out of the cemetery, down to the city, to all the places where those people who hurt him lived. And on his journey, he was so scared of what might happen. Are they going to kill me? Are they going to believe me? Are they going to even care what I have to say? Why should I share the gospel with them? They have hurt me so badly. What is going to happen to me? It can't be good. We don't know the details of what happened to this man after he went away. But from Mark's account of this story, and I'm talking about the Gospel of Mark, we learn that the man proclaimed the gospel, and we are told that in Mark 5:20 that, quote, everyone was amazed. Everyone was amazed. Now that's the ending of a good Bible story that we have come to expect, especially a story involving Jesus. Everyone was amazed. But we don't know what happened to this man. Did he live happily ever after? Or was he the next to go off the cliff? We don't know. The one thing we can say for sure is that he obeyed Jesus. Now, what we ought to take away from the story is that Jesus empowered this man to do the impossible, the unthinkable. And that is what I believe Jesus is asking of us. And then the more I think about it, I don't think Jesus is asking us to do this. I think Jesus commands us to take the good news message out to people who have hurt us. I believe Jesus is commanding us to do this, to go tell those people who hate you the most, who have disowned you, forgotten you, shackled you, and left you for dead, that Jesus can cast out all of our demons. He has power over unclean spirits and the power to make the unclean clean again. I'm not going to lie. Being a Christ follower is very scary at times. I get frightened also, sometimes. But that's what Jesus commands us. And if we are Christ followers, then we ought to obey Christ. We ought to obey Christ. Honestly, I don't know how people will respond to our good news message when we talk to them. I don't know if they'll react with love or with hate, or if they'll throw us off the cliff at Crystal Cove. I don't know. Hopefully not. But if we have learned anything from this story, we know that when the gospel of Jesus Christ is shared, amazing things will happen. Remember, everyone who saw what happened were amazed. So who knows? Who knows? Maybe when the people of Orange County hear us proclaiming the gospel and what Jesus has done for our lives in this community, they will encounter Christ, and they might go hog wild. I challenge us. I challenge you to spread the gospel this summer to dangerous people and in dangerous places and in dangerous ways. Amen.